So I took so much away from the film. One of the things that really struck me was history repeating itself. So, you know, Vietnam gets forgotten, and then you have Iraq, you've got Afghanistan. Do you feel that America, like the rest of the Western world perhaps, is unable to learn from its mistakes, its military mistakes?
Well, I think what the film reveals is that regardless of your age, military service stays pretty much the same. That the duties of the enlisted man are continuing and at the mercy of those who are in power, and you hope and trust that those who are in power are making decisions that are for the betterment of the world. It's not always the case, unfortunately, but that is what you hope.
And you saw George Bush in the film on the telly, you know, talking about Iraq. I was just very struck that, you know, now you have Donald Trump tweeting about North Korea. He's just put out another tweet overnight saying, you know, only one thing works. Can you sort of, as an American, contemplate that, you know, you might be heading for confrontation with North Korea?
I guess you have to. You know, we're talking about Last Flag Flying, and if you say, is it a war movie or is it an anti-war movie? And I said, everything should be an anti-war movie. Everything should be, that is the absolute last resort. Our president has a sensibility of bluster, and it's unfortunate because it sort of undermines the responsibility and the duty of those diplomats who are using every means possible to negotiate and to try to get to a level of understanding with foreign leaders.
Mistrust of the government and the feeling that a government has betrayed them is at the heart of the film, really, isn't it? These three veterans sort of struggling to reconcile their love of country with the way they've been betrayed by the government, really. I mean, what does it say about the nature of patriotism and the tensions within that patriotism?
I think it's a part of the movie, but what really is at the heart of the film is the depth of friendship and the relativity that these men have with each other in their history, but also with the next generation of soldiers, and being able to relate to that young man in a way that things have changed, and yet things really haven't changed.
Patriotism is a complicated thing now, though, isn't it? Particularly, you know, at the moment you've had the row over the sports stars kneeling during the singing of the national anthem, and, you know, Trump's been pretty vociferous in his tweets about that. Do you think pride in flag, pride in country has been turned into something rather more complicated now?
You know, and I think every democratic country was formed out of protest. I'm trying to think if what I just said was accurate, but I think it is. Historically, I don't think that any democratic country was formed without the sense of resistance and protest to oppression, whether it's from a king or queen or a tyrant or dictator of some sort. So we owe a great deal to the theory and execution of protest. We should embrace protest, not be afraid of it. We should be able to listen to protest, not turn a deaf ear to it. Will protect people who have a different ideology than mine to be able to speak their mind quietly and listen. I want to listen to what they have to say and how they form that opinion that is in direct opposition to what I believe.
But do you think that under Trump, the flag has been turned into something much more right-wing than it was?
Well, I think everybody tries to take ownership of what their beliefs are and impose that upon others. And I think protesting to the point of destroying someone else's freedoms, of how they wish to protest or salute the flag or appreciate the national anthem or whatever. I think it's wrong.
You were pretty vocal about Trump's response to the Charlottesville demonstrations, and I think you said that his denunciation of the white supremacists was like, you know, being a hostage video of some sort.
Oh,
I mean, a lot of people thought he wouldn't recover, and actually, you know, time goes on, you know, things happen, one tweet follows another, and he's still there.
It's proven that what we believe doesn't necessarily happen. I never thought he would be elected, or make it through the first half a year. We are dealing with something we have never dealt with before. And the advent of new technology allows him to be the impulsive person that he is and to immediately send out his feelings. One good thing about it is that we know. We know how he feels. We know how he thinks.
And he does resonate with a lot of people.
I suppose. Yeah, I think that's less and less, because I think in all honesty, and I don't mean this in a flippant way, I think that our president has an illness. And I don't say that to try to draw out a laugh or anything. I think he has a mental illness.
But I mean, you can't possibly know that. I mean, you know, you're speculating about someone's mental health.
That's why I use the words "I think." That's, you know, otherwise I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't give you know, a diagnosis, because I'm not a doctor. I am not one of those people who wish for his downfall. I want him to be successful. I honestly do, because if he is, it then means that my country has improved. I think that's what I think it means. So I don't want him to fail. I don't want him to bring us into war. I don't want him to disrupt social programs that I think are important and viable.
But I mean, your conversation with yourself just then feels very much like the conversation between the three friends. You know, that you're sort of struggling to reconcile your sense of sort of embarrassment at your president with your remaining pride in your country.
Mm-hmm. We represented, in this case, 4 different points of view. The 3 older guys in the movie, and the younger guy has his point of view as well. And so, and we all had different ways to approach how we felt about the country and war and the military service. And the good thing is that they're all true, because that's how they felt. It's the same way I feel about an audience, whether they're watching a movie or a play or whatever. They're never wrong, because that's how they felt.
In a way, the 3 friends are sort of trying to come up with their definition of how they feel about their country and how to define America. And I suppose a lot of people in the past might have defined America as, you know, a belief in flag, faith, and firearms. You've just had the worst mass shooting in US history. There's a sort of period of soul searching, I feel, from this side of the Atlantic. I mean, where do you think that will end? You know, could you have, going back to the president, could you have a pro-gun president actually bringing in historic controls? Is that possible? Thinking the unthinkable.
There's something going on in a global societal framework that is aggressive. The anxiety levels are high. Fear is high. Xenophobia is high. Racism, it's percolating. I think someone like President Trump is a result of those anxieties, I think, as opposed to being put into place. I think he exacerbates the anxiety, but I don't think he was the initial cause of it.
But can you dare to hope that he might come up with a solution for the gun violence that we've just seen?
It is daring to hope, but that's the way I choose to live, to try to look at positive sides and try to be proactive in making positive social change. I think until your final breath, I think it's up to us as citizens of the world to try to make things better.
The film is sad in its nature because they're burying a son. But there's also a hopefulness, isn't there, about these 3 friends who are very different, finding that they have more in common than what divided them.
You know, you have a story where men traditionally have concealed their feelings. You know, especially my father's generation, who went through World War II. Not many men wanted to talk about any of the atrocities that they saw, the difficulties that they endured. And that was the same in the Korean conflict. That was the Vietnam War was the first war that started to change things, and veterans were starting to open up and accept the post-traumatic stress syndrome and be able to have group therapy and individual therapy to be able to talk about it. So now we fast forward into the story of our film. These Vietnam vets are now old, and they're talking about it, about what they were stressing about, and that it's a very real and honest thing. And that's why the movie works so well, I think, is because men and women both are looking at these men in a vulnerable place, being susceptible to emotion, opening up and talking about their problems, their struggles.
Bryan Cranston, thank you very much.
Thank you.